welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Series 5 episode, Vampires of Venice, written by Toby Whitehouse and is directed by Johnny Campbell. This story continues on from the events of Time of the Angels and Flesh and Stone, as well as the short little episode, Meanwhile in the TARDIS Scene 2, in which Amy and the Doctor had just kissed because of their exciting adventure, but the Doctor isn't, he doesn't want to be involved in it, so he tries to get Rory Williams involved in the adventure. Basically, this is Rory Williams' introduction as a companion who had previously appeared in the episode The 11th Hour, as well as basically being a date episode for them so they can rekindle their relationship. Now, the idea of Amy Pond having this crush on the Doctor, and not only that, kissing the Doctor on the night before her wedding, was a very controversial moment in the series. A lot of people weren't happy with this, and especially in retroactive, in hindsight, knowing that Amy and Rory will become this one of the founding rock stones in the franchise in terms of what people like about the series. This scene, this small little subplot really doesn't hold up well, and so this story kind of has to deal with that, and it leads into the adventures with vampires in Venice. So yeah, it's right on the start. This story is on rocky ground. This story was actually the least viewed episode of Series 5. Mainly, when this came out, I remember so many people, so many debates and arguments when this episode aired. Remember, I've talked about this in my 11th Hour and the End of Time videos, but when Series 5 came out, at least in Britain anyway, a bunch of people absolutely hated it, being a massive departure from the Russell T Davies era, as well as the Russell T Davies era ending essentially with the series basically not wanting to change, and then basically changing in such a dramatic way. But I remember when this episode aired, a lot of people said it was going to be the death of the show. This is proof that the Stephen Moffat era and Matt Smith and Amy Pond, Karen Gillan, it was just a dead show and nobody cared about it anymore, because this episode had the lowest viewing figures of the series so far, I believe. However, it is important to note that this episode aired during a massive football event. I'm not too well versed in football. World Cup, Premier Cup, something cup, tournament or something. So, and if you're in Britain, there's one thing you gotta learn, is that when football is on, the entire world just stops dead in its tracks. We are a nation that is obsessed with football. I personally have no interest in it, but it's a very important factor, and the viewing figures, as I keep trying to state to people, even to this day, tell you absolutely nothing of the quality of a television series. So that is a very shame, because there's a lot to like here. As over time, this episode has been generally liked by people. As I've stated, like, Series 5 is now considered one of the best series, which is really funny, again, comparing it to when it was first released, and there was this massive split in the fandom because of it. But now it's generally considered one of the best series in Doctor Who, period. And Vampire in Venice, not like a particularly massively loved one. I don't think there's anybody who will claim it as their favourite story. I do really enjoy this story, has a lot of fun moments. It develops the relationship of Amy and Rory further. So that's really nice. This story was overlooked thanks to its premiere World Cup, and the fact the series at that point had just a group of people who just wanted to hate it, and now it is. It's got a ton of praise and a ton of appreciation for this small little episode with Toby Whitehouse as writer. I personally, Toby Whitehouse previously wrote a School Reunion for Series 2 of the Revived Era, and he would write for many other stories in Series 5, being one of the big three creators, along with Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, and they've worked on multiple projects together, basically being great friends. So even though he only wrote one story for Russell T Davies, he has written a handful of Stephen Moffat era. And if you remember in my School Reunion video, despite me thinking that Sarah Jane in it is just absolutely amazing, and I do like the overall plot and the villains in it, I felt like it could have been better, it could have been a lot stronger. Here, I kind of just basically feel the same way. The story does actually have very similar elements to School Reunion. You've got a three-way companionship with technically in School Reunion, Mickey was joining the TARDIS team, and here Rory Williams now joins the TARDIS team, essentially becoming the Stephen Moffat era equivalent of Mickey Smith. Arthur Darwell plays Rory Williams, and he does not know how to give off a bad performance. I love Arthur Darwell and his interactions with Matt Smith. Their chemistry works so well that it made me wish for more Rory Williams. I really enjoyed his performance, and it's a shame that, especially in Series 5, he was underused a lot in the series, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, should we get into the episode at hand? Let's get into the episode at hand. The first, we get a pre-credit sequence, which I think a lot of people, including myself, just absolutely cannot stand. And for a lot of people, they just skip until the actual episode starts, because it's basically supposed to be the bedrock and the continuation from the previous episodes. Essentially, Rory Williams is on his stag do. He's in a pub, everybody's celebrating, and he's on the phone to Amy. Just as I know it's it's silly and it's a shame, but I just want to say on the night before our wedding that I just absolutely love you, and I just can't wait to get married. This is going to be one of the greatest moments of my life, before a cake comes out and sexual music starts playing, basically implying that a stripper's going to burst out of the cake. And can you imagine Rory Williams' surprise when instead of a stripper, you have a quirky alien from constellation of Castorbrus, who your fiancé had been talking about since she was a little girl, just pop out there and reveal himself, and is trying to get in contact with Rory Williams. And so the Doctor makes this massive grand entrance where, they were expecting a stripper, instead he got the Doctor. And the Doctor, I will admit, despite this scene being very controversial, which we'll get onto a little bit, I will admit, it's easily the funniest scene that Matt Smith has ever performed, where he's like, okay, good, it's Rory. I thought I burst out with the wrong cake. Again. And the bit is like, can somebody let Lucy in? I think her name is Lucy. Outside, and somebody grab her a coat. She's diabetic. And everybody's just shocked and horror of this poor man. And then the Doctor basically announces to Rory Williams, it's right, we need to talk about your fiancée. She tried to kiss me. And then everybody is just stunned in the bar, as the Doctor is well, tell you what, you're a lucky man, she's a great kisser. And then he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Her things sound better in your head, and then turns it off. And then the credit scenes plays. It's absolutely funny. There's no denying that. It is absolutely hilarious. However, the idea of the Doctor just announcing to everybody, to Rory Williams, at the stag do that his fiancée, the woman he's supposed to get married in the morning, kissed him in front of all of these people, and he's like kind of like bragging, like, don't worry, she'll a great kisser, makes the Doctor seem really unlikable. I do understand why this has happened, though, in terms of a production standpoint. It's been established in the short period that the 11th Doctor has been in so far, in the meanwhile in the TARDIS elements and in the 11th hour, that the 11th Doctor is somebody who he tries not to, he's a bit of a bloke. Like, he tries to impress the girls and tries to demeanour certain men when he get the chance. Like, he always laughs at Rory and does this thing with to impersonate his nose. And so that's kind of like playing into that. Like, the 11th Doctor is deep down in heart a bloke. But I really don't think it works very well. In this scene anyway, it feels way too much like the Doctor's being really insensitive on the subject matter and just puts Rory through this really emotionally turmoil state, which doesn't actually become a big part in the story. The story then cuts to like Rory in the TARDIS, and the Doctor explains it in a very iconic scene where the Doctor is about to explain how it's bigger on the inside, but Rory actually beats him to it, saying that it's another dimension, and the Doctor gets up in his face and is just like, I like the bit when they say it's bigger on the inside. And the Doctor basically announces, like, right, the reason why she kissed me is because, it's an adventure, it's a thrill, it destroys couples, and it blinds you to what you appreciate the most. And I've seen it happen to hundreds upon hundreds of couples, but it's just the fact that the Doctor was the closest one and saved her, and so he's basically taken them out on a vacation so they can spark their romantic interests again. Basically, he's trying to push them to stay a couple. And I really like that here, the Doctor seeing that there's this trouble in this relationship, and he kind of does feel bad, so he does his best to absolutely fix it. However, there's three main things. One, the groundwork of it, with the Doctor, like I said, the Doctor announced it to everybody, publicly humiliated Rory in a sense, puts Rory in a very, really tough decision. A really tough moral dilemma, which doesn't really justify the whole quirkiness of the Doctor and Amy in this episode. Two, they never really go further in their relationship in this story to a point. You do see their relationship kind of blossoming again. You kind of see them having like this great cutesy like datey scene. However, the idea of the Doctor kissing Rory's wife to be the day after is only brought up in like one scene when they're in Venice, and they just casually seem to be fine with this, and it's never like brought up again, which actually might be a strength into the episode. And three, in terms of Amy, we never really see like her dilemma in a way. The story is like, right, she kissed me because I was like the only one there. Amy never is shown to feel guilty or torn by the fact that she kissed another man the night before her wedding, which makes Amy feel really unlikable here as well, in my opinion. But if you can get past the basic premise of the setup of the story and we get into the actual Venice plot, then you're going to have a really good time as we basically get introduced to Rosanna, this woman who seems to be in charge of this church-like building, where her son basically comes around and people basically offer their daughters to be part of this school, this university, is it? I'm not quite sure, but there's something really mysterious going in there. This man, this is earlier on in the episode, he offers his daughter Isabella to be part of this school, this university, because he's poor, he's struggling with money, and if he can get her into this school, it'd mean the world to them. And so they accept, the son accepts, only for the mother to basically is like, say goodbye to your daughter, and then like he struggles to see her, and so the father character later on in the episode, when Dr. Amy and Rory are in Venice, he basically tries to get his daughter Isabella back, and when he does see her, find her again, she seems to be hurt by sunlight, and not only that, doesn't seem to remember her own father. And so the doctor talks to this man and starts investigating and learns about this church of people who basically they think that people around him have this mythos about vampires, that there are vampires in Venice. And Amy and Rory do talk a little bit, and there's some like that awkward energy, because of what happened. And but again, it doesn't feel like the situation really fits the narrative of the plot. I mean, the way that they're talking about it, it's like they're having like some sort of like little struggling in their relationship. Not that the woman kissed another man the night before their wedding. But again, if you take that out of context, you take that away, because that was a Stephen Moffat thing, and Toby Whitehouse, I can imagine, didn't have a say in that. So I don't really, not that I don't blame the story, but I don't blame Toby Whitehouse for that plot element. And so, they're like, Amy tries to get Rory to see like how amazing this world is with the Doctor, and how they can, they're in Venice in the past, basically hyped the culture in Venice, and so they basically like exploring, having fun, before they hear a scream, and they see the son of Rosanna's son, basically numping at a woman's neck and showing vampire teeth, and he runs into the water and he dives in. Whilst the Doctor, he goes in secretly into the church after he gets the man that he was talking to basically distract the guards. And he goes in, and we get this really iconic moment where the Doctor gets interacting with some vampires, some female vampires who basically tease him. In a great scene, if you take it out of context of continuity, as the Doctor is like, he's absolutely amazed by the fact that they don't have any reflection. And, it's like, oh my god, real life vampires, this is amazing. And when they ask who he is, there's this really cool bit where he gets his library card out by accident, because Rory Williams has his psychic paper. And it's the picture of the first Doctor, as all the characters, all the vampire ladies are just like, what the hell are you showing me? But the thing is, not only are vampires a well-established race in Doctor Who, but they are the arch enemies of the Time Lords. And that's never brought up here. However, that's not really a problem issue with the story. That's just because I'm a fan and I know about the State of Decay, as well as Time Lord Victorious and the expanded media. The Time Lords and vampires have been known to be like two deadly races against each other. So when the Doctor sees vampires, the fact that he isn't surprised that one of the Time Lord's greatest arch enemies are alive is strange. Unless you could headcanon in saying that the 11th Doctor knew right from the get-go that these vampires aren't actually vampires. Because they're not. The plot twist is that, they're actually this alien race that have used a perception filter to disguise themselves as humans, with the sharp teeth, basically a subconscious in the brain to show that they're in danger. And the no reflection is also how the perception filter works. So that's really, I like how each of the scientific explanation actually feels like it's very plausible. And for the idea of them basically being aliens, it does make a lot of sense. And, I'm somebody who personally likes the more supernatural storytelling where things don't get explained and you get this creepy, strange atmosphere about it. But this story explains basically everything that's happening in the plot. And so the Doctor gets chucked out at one point. There's a great moment where he tells the girls, like, tell me your whole plan. And he just turns to the camera and essentially just breaks the fourth wall and goes, one day that's going to work. What? They should do that. They should do a story where the Doctor's like, tell me your whole plan. Okay, let me tell you a plan. We got diagrams and everything. They should do that. If I wrote a Doctor Who story, that is what I would do, personally. So let's talk about Rosanna, because she is played by the magnificently talented Helen McCrory, who I'm just going to state easily the best appearance in, what's it called? Guest star. Easily one of the best guest stars of Series 5 of Doctor Who. You have some really amazing talents and some really amazing guest stars in Series 5. Like that woman from the 11th Hour, who I can't remember her name, and Bill Nye, who will appear later on, but his role is more of a cameo. But Helen McCrory is a big actress. Well, she was a big actress, God bless her soul. She passed away in 2021, I believe, or 2020. I can't remember if it's to do with the COVID. But sadly, she passed away quite recently, and I think it's a tribute to how great her role is here. That when she did pass away, a lot of people, when they announced her passing away, is that she was a star in Doctor Who, as if she was a big and prominent role, despite her being just a villain in one episode. She makes a great presence, and what makes this story really great is that she has that kind of cliched, villainous atmosphere about her, but she also gets out a lot of great emotions and a lot of great a great dilemma into her character. Now, I said this story earlier on, I can compare it a lot to School Reunion. This story is very similar in a sense to School Reunion, as the main villains are aliens disguised themselves as humans. They have this alien form that disguise themselves as humans. They both have vampire-like abilities, and they hide in modern society, and their teeth go sharp, as well as the main villain, despite being a semi-cliched villain, does have this really understandable storyline towards them, as Rosanna at one point explains that her planet was destroyed. They ran away from the silence. The universe is basically going out. Things are disappearing all throughout time and space. And her home planet of Saturn 9 has been destroyed. So they came to Earth with only the males, with the exception of herself, surviving the ship, the crash. So when in Venice, she put herself into the establishment, as well as trying to get as many girls, and has been basically trying to convert them into her species, these giant fish-like entities. And she basically pleads with the Doctor to help her save her race. She's not really... She is kind of a villain in a way, because, she kills people and she turns people into evil vampire-like creatures, and plans to kill humanity. But the storyline is about her trying to save her children and her species, and that is a storyline for a majority of great villains and some pretty bad villains. But what really works is that this story really details her thought processes, and Helen, and it's mainly Helen McCrory's performance here that really nails it. You can see in her face that she wants sympathy for this concept, and she really, she's kind of trying to make the best out of a worse situation here, and and as well she plays with the Doctor's morality, as when she finds out that he's a Time Lord, she basically is just like, help me, Doctor, you know how horrible it is to lose an entire race like this. You know how it feels like to be lost and alone and in an environment which you basically got to make the best of a terrible situation and just keep your race going. And that does play a great element in this story. And one of my favourite moments is the Doctor. They have this kind of question and answers debate. There's a really great scene, and slowly they get closer and closer and closer as the topics become a lot more personal and a lot more like heated in the debate. And then the Doctor asks Rosanna, "Where's Isabella?" And she's just like, "Who?" That girl that you took, that we tried to save earlier on in the episode. It's like, oh, sorry. All deserters must be punished. We killed her, and the Doctor's just like, okay, you've sealed the deal. I'm not helping you. What? Because we killed her? No, it's not because you killed her. It's not because you murdered people to try and keep you survive. It's because you didn't know Isabella's name. You didn't know Isabella's name. And that kind of strut that the Doctor does when he leaves the building, that is the rage of a Time Lord right there. This story is probably the first in the Moffat era that really deals with the concept of the Doctor being the last of his race. And this story could have easily fitted into the Russell T Davies era, with that being one of the emotional hooks that ties this story together. And that really does leave a great gravity into this story. However, as I say, with that being like the great focus of the story, the idea of this story is supposed to be like this this reunion, this connection between the Amy and Rory really gets into the sidelines. There's a scene in a tunnel when Amy basically goes into the building to disguise herself to try and save Isabella, and Amy and Rory basically wait for her to unlock this thing so they can go in the sewers and then arrive inside the building to save both Amy and Isabella. And they have this discussion about like how the Doctor kissed Amy, and there's a lot of jokes, and Rory seems very understandably pissed by this, with the Doctor just trying to brush to the side. It's like, you want to do this here? We're trying to save the world from giant fish-like aliens. Actually, they don't know that yet. But, they're trying to save the world from vampires. So, let me get this straight. The Doctor takes Amy and Rory to Venice so they can kindle their relationship and fix any emotional struggles that they can. As soon as Rory basically tries to ask the Doctor any trick questions and tries to, help his emotional state in some ways, the Doctor just brushes him to the side in the events of the story. I mean, of course, the vampires are very deadly and very dangerous, but it feels emotionally dissonant from that storyline, as it's mainly played for jokes. You got a bit where Rory's like, it's a great thing I brought my torch, as the Doctor brings out this giant sunlight visor with Rory comparing the size of them, and the doctor's just like, let's not go there. So yeah, all of that kind of gets brushed up to the corner. Another really weak element is this story, as well, is the ending. Essentially, the girls, they come out chasing after the doctor, Amy, Rory, and the father of Isabella, and they basically they start running around, getting chased until Isabella's father basically has kept all of this gunpowder, and when all the vampires come up to try and kill him, he sets off the gunpowder and kills him and all of the women that have been converted by the people, whilst Rosanna has activated a machine which will change the climate of Earth, or maybe just Venice, so that her species can survive on Earth. But the doctor, he goes in and he's like, stop the machine, the girls are gone, they're all dead, you've got nothing left, help me turn off the machine. And Rosanna's just like, do it yourself, I don't care, my plan has failed, my race is going to die, my children are going to starve. And the doctor basically tries to run up to the top of the tower. And also as well, it's important to note that Amy and Rory just kind of stand there at the last minute of the episode. We do get this really great scene in which Amy is just like, we're going to help you, Doctor. And the Doctor just shouts at her. It's like, no, get back to the TARDIS. You listen to me, Amy. Get back into the TARDIS. And Amy kind of runs off in anger, whilst Rory is like, thank you. And it's kind of up in the air what the implication is. Did the Doctor really get angry at Amy? We've had a few scenes in which the Doctor gets really angry, especially in the previous episode, when he realised that feeding him to the time crack would stop it. I can't remember if I mentioned that in my vlog, but don't worry about that. But for now, the Doctor shouts at Amy and stuff. But it's up in the air on whether he shouted at her because, he genuinely was angry, or whether he was trying to get Amy to emotionally distance herself so that she can connect with Rory. They do have this fun little fight scene with Rosanna's son, to which Rory tries to stand up, tries to protect Amy, and he kind of comes off really cowardly, but he tries to talk to him until he mentions his mother. The only person uglier than you is your mother, which gets his attention, and there's this really dorky action scene. They kill him thanks to Amy using her mirror to reflect the sunlight. They snog, which kind of just so happens to prepare the relationship, and then they basically go up to help the Doctor, but then they just kind of stand there and do nothing. And the Doctor goes up onto the top of the tower to try and fix this machine. There's earthquakes, there's tidal waves, and this gas and cloud has basically come to convert the environment. And how does the Doctor stop this? Is he going to do some really weird techno-babble stuff? Is it going to tie in with Amy and Rory's relationship? Is he going to need their help and them to work together to get the machine going, turned off? Or does he just flick a switch? Because that's how this episode ends. He flicks a switch and everybody starts cheering. In terms of directing, Johnny Campbell does a fantastic job of bringing out... I don't think this place is actually filmed in Venice, but you couldn't believe that by looking at this. This story looks absolutely gorgeous. With the exception of this final moment, which I feel feels really dissonant. There's a bit where the Doctor and Rory and Amy are looking up at this, hooray, the Doctor saved the day, and you can hear people clapping and cheering, but you never see anyone else in these shots except for our main three leads. And the story ends then with Amy basically is join with us, Rory. We appreciate your company. And the doctor's like, fine by me. I have no troubles with it. Completely changing his attitude since Mickey Smith, where the doctor is very happy to invite his companions, partners onto the TARDIS, which is that's so cool. And the doctor realizes that suddenly Venice has become extremely quiet, and the only thing they can hear is silence, which ties into the whole plot line. The idea of silence is really confusing in terms of the Doctor Who canon of Series 5, because the silence was supposed to have represented basically, the end of all things. When time starts eating away, there's going to be nothing there. People making sound, crowds, they'll all be eaten up, and you'll just have silence. That was, I thought, was kind of implied silence will fall. However, later on we learn that the Silence is actually a religious organization with their main visual style is these tall grey aliens that make you forget. So whether the silence mentioned here is just another term for actual silence, or whether it's this religious organized race, it's really strange and confusing, especially considering the backstory of Rosanna. Was she getting chased by the religion silence, or the silence at the end of the universe? It's up in the air. It's really strange and confusing, but that's a story for another time. So that's Vampires in Venice. Overall, apart from some elements of the story, there's a great focus here. There's a great narrative here, and there's a lot of fun to be had in this adventure. However, a few things really don't hold up too well. With the fact that this story was supposedly supposed to be about Amy and Rory's relationship, that element is easily the weakest part of the adventure. And it's sad that, one of the best relationships in Doctor Who canon have some really weak outings in their early adventures, and seem to be sidelined by this really interesting plot with the fish vampire ladies and the Doctor debating with himself. Can he leave another race to be extinct? Can he hold the conscience of another of killing an entire race again? I've got to mention Rosanna's death, but I don't think I got enough time. And yeah, it's mainly just a fun little kind of a rehash of School Reunion in terms of its plot, only with a much more interesting environment. But yeah, it feels emotionally distant to what the story was supposed to be about, but it does have an emotionally great hook, an emotionally great adventure, and it is a great blast. Just try and headcanon it that Amy did something else than kiss a man the night before her wedding, and you would have a blast. You'll have a great time. So there you go, that's Vampires in Venice. So join me next time when dreams start haunting our main characters. No, I'm not talking about the episode you're thinking about. So join me next time for the K9 episode, Dream Eater. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!